So last time we were working on the rear of the car doing the wheel arches, got that pretty much squared up and ready to go. I wanted to spend some attention on the front end here. So I need to start assembling the tube front and planning for what's going to happen when I put the motor and stuff back in. So I wanted to get a head start. I chopped off the frame rails, just like a little excess here on the stock S14. Chopped that off, made it flat, and then I've plated this. I know that I want the tube front to land in this area here. So I plated both the front and the top here, and then down the side just for a little bit more rigidity and structure. And then I kind of beefed this up a little bit too for the traction control arms. So everything is pretty much ready to go and ready for tube. I even added the pad up here knowing that I want to follow along this for the fender and then have the tube land about here. I know I don't have a radiator up front anymore as I moved it to the back. Gives me a lot more space to work with, but I'd like to keep this as kind of a front structure. So for the front structure, I want to be able to use it as hood pins and headlight mounts, and then I will be putting oil coolers here. That is the change that I had from last year. I will be putting oil coolers here from Chase Bays and kind of keep everything clean. So the entire idea is to have this piece up here be removable. This piece here will be welded in. So today we're gonna work on this, make sure it doesn't conflict with the wheels, with the headlights, it's not too high for the hood, and it's something easy to mount with the fenders. I have a couple scrap bins that I like to play with, and we'll just see what looks good and what is going to be out of the way of the intake manifolds and things like that, and will look nice. Ultimately, I want it to look good too and be super functional when I'm trying to get the engine in and out if I have to. So let's get mocking stuff up. I'm going to grab a couple of these excess bins. We'll see what looks good. So when I'm building something like a tube front end or a roll cage, things like that, A-pillar bars, I like to have a bunch of scrap pieces, and this is something I keep in my shop pretty much at all times. I bend a couple things out of the material I'm going to use. So I'm going to use an 1.5 inch outer diameter tubing, and what I like to do is just bend stuff at different degrees. So this was a 90-degree bend, and I like to use that for just laying things out. This was a 90 that was also a little less than 90 that was cut in half. So I keep some scrap pieces like this so I can just kind of lay things out and see how it looks and fit things up. So the general idea here is I kind of want this to be a 90. I want this to be fairly straight in the front here. So when I build a front structure off of it, it's nice and even, and I'm not battling anything. But I know I have to follow this fender line. So, you know, this is too short of a cut, obviously, but it's actually pretty dang close. So just to mock this up and get the angles right, just get an idea going, this is something I just like to play with. So just 2 tubes, 2 scrap pieces, and this gives me a pretty good idea of where I want to land on the pads. So I have an 1.5 inch tubing like this. If I had something that would fit directly inside of this, I could make a small cut, probably 2-3 inches long, and slide these 2 pieces together, and that would have enough resistance to kind of hold shape. This would give me a good base to start with, and I would be able to physically see where I want to be with the angle. I could bring this back to the bender, draw a couple lines on it, make sure they don't move, and have a better idea of where I want to bend, be able to see it. So I don't have something that will fit in here. I might just tack this together for the time being. So I'll play with it, see how close I can get, tack it together, and then it should give me a good idea of the overall length, where I need to bend, and what degree I need to be. So this will be offset a little bit. It's kind of hard to see, and we're looking at something about like this. So this is where it's beneficial to have a couple scrap pieces, because I can mock it up, change the angle, move it up and down, and you can see right now I can follow that fender pretty dang close. So I can make a few cuts, I can move it in and out, and make this fit perfect, tack it together, and that'll give me a really good idea of what the bend should look like before I cut everything and waste material. I don't want to waste anything, as it's fairly expensive to waste DOM tubing. This is 1.5 inch DOM. I don't want to waste it. I want to make it perfect the first time. So let's see if we can do it. Okay, where was I starting? I That's too high. That is just about right. Oof, that looks pretty good. How can I make this stay? So something like that will be our start of the tube front. So that's what we're going for. Just a couple of mock-up pieces. They're not perfect. That one's a bit short. It's got a cut on it, but it gives me a great idea of where to go. So I'm going to measure up the length of this and put in a little bit extra so I can cut it. And then we'll start with this 90-degree bend, and then we'll figure out the degree of what this bend needs to be up here and go from there. So this will help find that angle right here. If I maybe tack this together real quick, then it gives me one piece to work with, and then I can cut the tacks free and do it on the other side. Just a couple of really cheap Harbor Freight clamps and some extra bends. Now I'm hands-free, right? So I can measure the length, get a way better idea of what I'm looking at here. Slide that guy in there. So to our first bend, in the middle is about 11 inches. And we're just over 3 feet. So I should be able to cut just over 3 feet, be able to make these bends. I'm going to go a little bit longer than that, just so I have some excess to cut down. So I want to get this made up, get the angles correct, and then I can figure out how high or low this needs to be, and then what angle this cut needs to be at. So let's cut something just over 3 feet, put a 90-degree bend on it, and see where we're at. So I've cut this piece 3.5 feet, and this is another message for you guys out there with tube benders. This stuff comes pretty dirty. It's got like an oil on it to keep it from rusting. Clean the poopy off. Clean it off. It's good for your parts. You don't want to damage your dies. So I got some acetone and just wipe down, get all the excess crud off of this. Don't want any of that stuff gumming up your dies, so get it nice and clean. And I have seen guys use cooking spray or something like that in order to grease these up. With this one, I just make sure it's very clean, and I'll send it right through. I don't think it'll have any problem with this, and it won't mar up my surface. Just get it nice and clean before you start bending. So first off, I'm going to start with that 90-degree bend, as I think it's pretty crucial. I want to keep that look in the front that makes everything straight. I want to base everything off of that. It may make it a little bit difficult to match, as I'll do a 90, and then I'm not really certain where that one is, but I'll tack that together and find out. I'm going to start with the 90 first, and I'm going to start a little past where I wanted to go. So from what I had measured on the scrap piece that I have, I kind of like where that area was. So that bend started right at about 5.5 inches. I'm going to go a little bit past that just to give myself some space. So let's do a whole nother inch. Let's do 6.5. And then we will figure it out from there. This is the end of my die, and this is the mark in which I want to start the bend. And luckily for me, the JD squared is pretty much dead on with the end of the die. So I'll just put that right there. And then we're ready to bend. Okay, I realize I blasted through this first pipe without explaining too much. I just needed to get it out there and see if it was going to work before I explain it to you. But it does seem like it fits pretty nice. I have a rough cut of what's going on right now, but I just chopped it fairly close. I'm going to hone in on it, but everything looks to be in a correct plane, and I really like the look of it. So kind of the idea I wanted, and I think I can run with the initial measurements that I had in my head. Not always are you right on the first try. You can see that this is actually zeroed out. This guy is zeroed out here, so it is level. It is a level surface. and I was using this to measure about 90 degrees. It's 89.4. That's pretty close that direction. And then also this way is 89.9. So that is pretty true to what I want, and it lands pretty nicely on the pad there. So all I have to do is trim this down a bit, and it should be exactly where I want it to be. Originally, I was going to put it up in here a little more, but as I realized, I wouldn't be able to weld it to that pad all the way. So I decided to bring it out a little bit, and I will gusset this just to give it a little bit more strength. I don't really think it needs that much. It'll also just tie it in and make it look nice. So I am going to probably cut this and get this fit up fairly nice, and then I'm going to explain this entire process on the second bar. Hopefully lightning strikes twice and I get it correct. Now, because this is a pretty awkward piece, I'm gonna have to cut it by hand in the bandsaw, but the bandsaw is pretty straight, and as long as I keep to the line that I had marked right here, I think I should be pretty spot on. Normally I would cut this in the chop saw, but the way I have it set up with this awkward bend, I don't think it'll work great. So we'll cut it on this. Let's hope this fits a little bit closer. So it looks like I'm just about 1/4 inch off from where I want this to land on the pad. So I want to ease up on this because I didn't want to go too far, but I do really like the angle where I'm at. It seems to fit just great, honestly. So I'm going to bring this in just a little bit more, and then I might tack it in place, put on a fender, and see if this has any problem with the fender, with the hood, with the headlight. I don't want to just weld this thing in. It could hit anything. I don't know how far this height is. I did put the hood on already. I got the fenders just waiting to go on so I can see where that lands. I don't want this to be too high hitting the hood, and I don't want it to be too far out to where it's hitting the headlight. So I don't mind modifying the headlight a little bit to get this desired look, but I'm pretty happy with where it's at, to be honest. I like the way this looks. I like this layout. If I can get away with it with the headlight, I might just try and match this on the other side. So what I'm going to do before I move on is just tack this in place. I have it pretty leveled up. I think it's in a good position. So I'm going to tack this in place, put on the fender, put on the hood, and see if I have any issues with contact, if this is in the way. And then I'm going to mock up a headlight as well to make sure that that's far enough back. If it doesn't have any issues, I might run with where it's at right now and just make the other side match. And I'll show you the entire process of how to build the other side after I get through this process. It's a little bit easier for me to explain. When you're doing something like this, you don't have to be too intimidated. Lay a tack that's easy to cut off. Something that you can access. If you screw it up, you can cut it off easily. You can grind it down flush and start over. So I can do this and kind of manipulate it a little bit too. Just on one single tack, I can knock it around a little bit. So let's get this thing tacked up. So that did pulled it this direction a little bit, as to be expected. But I can push it down and get a tack up here as well. We'll check to see how true it is, and then just throw on a fender, put the hood down, see if anything hurts. So as I mock it up, it's not bad. Looks like I have plenty of room for the headlight to go in and out, which is good. So I'm not concerned with where this is at. I think that's in a good spot. So I can match that. However, I believe the hood is a bit high. It's hitting just up in here. So it could come down, I don't know, 1/4 inch. So we might start there, cut 1/4 inch out of the bottom, bring it down a little bit, and I think it should fit just perfect. Okay, modified it. Let's take one more look. That is pretty close. So you can see up under here, it's touching just a little bit right here, but it's not too much to be concerned about. I mean, we're talking about maybe 1/8 inch. It may be annoying rubbing, but I don't mind it to fit a bit tight, and then I will just kind of cut that out a little bit. Knowing it's a fiberglass hood, even if I had a metal hood, I would probably trim that and scallop it just a little bit. So I'm happy with where that sits. I think we can go ahead and replicate the other side. Well, I was going to show you how to do this, but I don't even know how I did it. I'm just kidding. Dude, I swear, every time I turn the camera on, this happens. I just want to show you how to do it. So now that I've got the other side done, and like I said, I kind of rushed through it, I want to explain in depth what I did. I just had to work through that first. As a fabricator, if you don't have one of these, you need to get one. Just a nice little digital level. It has a magnet on one side. It's kind of cupped, so you can put it on some tubing, and it's very nice to use. I can use this for roll cages. I could use it in the rear end. All kinds of fabrication stuff I use this for. They're like 25, 30 bucks. You won't regret it. Go get you one of these. Yeah, this one is a Klein model. It works really nice. I use it pretty much every day. So the first thing I do is put it on the floor. So I leveled the floor. The floor is 0.0. I was actually shocked at how level the floor is. Then I will put it on this part of the chassis to see where that lies. That is pretty dang close at 0.1. So it is really close to level as it sits on the jack stands. I did take some time to make sure that I tried to level the chassis, knowing that I was going to do work like this. Then the next step for me is I have these tubes mocked up. These were the spare tubes that I had mentioned before. I always have a couple different bends. So use the material you plan to use so everything is very true when it comes time to put it together. So this is an 1.5 inch, 90-degree bend. I made sure it was a 90-degree bend, double checked it, and then I had another 90-degree bend which is cut in half. And I usually take a 90, cut it in half just to simulate other things. So it's about half, almost 60 degrees. So I can do that for A-pillar bars or bash bars, just something that has a little bit more intricate bend sequence to it. So what makes this front end weird is that it has 2 axes of where the bend needs to be. So knowing that this is a true 90, I have set everything to pretty much 90 degrees. If you can't really see that, this is 90 degrees straight up and down, and it is 90 degrees this direction. So this is very straight in this point. And as you can see here, it will start to rise up going into where the fender lies. And that is where you get another awkward bend. It's easy to bend a 90 degree and a 90 degree on an even plane knowing that it's level. But this is off a little bit. So how do we find that? Kind of the same thing. I use this frame rail, which is very straight. We're barely half a degree. We're half a degree down going this way. So keeping that in mind, I will put this on my mocked up tube, and what it ends up being is 9.5 degrees. This plane here is 9.5 degrees going down. From here, if this was level, it's 9.5 degrees down. Now, I will start this bend with this 90-degree bend. I know I want this perfectly 90 degrees. It's going to be straight, going to be true, and then we're going to work to this one. So I'll show you on the bender how we can get to that point. Now I have my true 90-degree bend. It just had to go a little bit past it just to suck it up. So it ended up being 92.2, which is the same as what that was on that side. So 92.2 is where this 90-degree bend starts. The next thing we have to worry about is where the next bend starts. We don't have to worry about the degree of the bend yet. We just need to know where does it start. So right here where this is split and this is cut is pretty close to where I want it. So this is where the bend will start. This is the depth that I want. And that ends up being 12.5 inches from the very edge of the bar to the spot where it's cut. So I lay this on the ground, I put it up against something very flat, and then make sure that I have a good measurement so I can measure from this point very flat to here, and it's very true, accurate. And the next step is to load it into the bender. So now that we have our true 90-degree bend in here, it's sitting straight up and down. You got to think about which way you want it to bend, because if you bend it exactly like the other one, it would be kind of odd. So this is sitting straight up and down. Before, when I bent this, it would have been straight down. So this is going up before it was going down, as I need to make the opposite style bend. So the bend is going this direction, and I want to be able to lean this tube 9.5 degrees. That's what we decided on was the measurement. So 9.5 degrees this direction. I have this level, which is fairly level. It reads 0.0 on the flattest surface of the bender itself. And what I can do is stick that right to here. And that is just about 90 degrees. We can move it around a little bit. In order to make the next bend, I need to subtract 9.5 degrees. So I'm going to push it this direction here until I hit just shy or just over 80 degrees. So we're 83, 82, and we want to be at 80.5. So I have it at 80.5 degrees, as you can see here. And that will be good to start this bend. So now that I'm at 80.5 degrees, if I add 9.5, I'm at 90 degrees. So this is where I can start this bend, knowing that it should be pretty close to where I want it to sit. Now that it's mocked up and in place, we can figure out how much we need to bend it. So the next thing we want to find out is the degrees we have to bend. So we know that this is going up 9.5 degrees. We have it set, it's ready to go. Now we can find out how far we have to bend it. So this right here is the bendicator from JD Squared. It's a pretty slick little system to see how you need to bend it. So you could follow this bend right here. So basically place that above this tube, and then you have this one to follow the other. And that will just kind of give you a good idea of where it's at. And this one's fancy, so you can lock it down. I have it locked from the other side, so I haven't really moved it. So this is basically the two planes that the tubes are going to be on, and I have a good idea of where the bend needs to start and stop. You can use it above the machine and just kind of eyeball it and get really close, and then you can make a better judgment by inching up on it with your bender. Now, you don't need something this fancy. This is great. I love it. It's very cool. They come in all different sizes from JD Squared, but you can make your own, and something very simple. I mean, you can even take what I have right here. I have 2 rulers. So you can take 2 rulers and do effectively kind of the same thing. So I have 2 rulers and this little Harbor Freight clamp. So what I do is basically just line these tubes up like so. So that is fairly close right there. If you hold that above the tube, you can see pretty much where they need to be. So you can bend to this point. You don't have to be exact on your degrees or math or what you're trying to do. Visually, you can get pretty dang close with this. And then you'll write it down. And if you know you need a few more degrees, then you can start doing the math to edge up on it. But this is a really quick, simple way to do it. Other ways I've done it is I've had just some random strap metal, like 1-inch strap, and then put a bolt in the middle, and you can tighten it and loosen it if you want to. So it's pretty simple, but I mean, how basic is that? Just a clamp, 2 rulers. So that is one of the easiest ways to find your angle if you don't have something super fancy like the bendicator that I have. Now that we have our angle set, all we got to do is bend it to this point within a few degrees, and we can check on it and see how it looks. Luckily for me, the Model 54 bender is pretty awesome and precise and has multiple things that make it fantastic. One of them is this is where the degrees are. There's multiple modes on here, but right now I have it set basically just to show me what the degrees are of the bend. And I have cinched this up to make it tight, which makes it 0.7. So almost 1 degree to have it tight. And then I have this to go up and down for my hydraulics. So up will just start to bend, and then down will bring it back. So it's pretty cool. I can watch this dial. I know that I'll need to add 0.7 to it because that's where I'll be. So it'll be 52.7 is what I'm looking at for this bend. Just like that. This should be pretty close to the piece that we need. And as I said before, it'll be a little bit long, so we'll have to be cut down a little. That's looking pretty correct to me. I like the way that follows. Like I said, this is a bit long, so this will need to be trimmed down, and this will also need to be trimmed. So I kind of let it sit where it is. I'll run a ruler to get a close estimate of where this needs to be, and I'll just mark that, cut the angle, and drop it down little by little and inch it in there. I'm going to take a couple measurements off the other side, and we should be able to match this up quite nicely. But I think we've done it. So I wanted to take a step back and get a better look at it. I opened up the garage door, and it's a beautiful day. I wouldn't have known because I've been in here working all day. I should have had the garage door open all day, but it does look nice. I've put the level on every single plane, and I'm within a degree of everything that this one has. So I think I can live with it. I know that if I keep messing with it, I could probably get it either perfect or I could screw it up and have to start all over. So I'm pretty happy with where it sits. I think I'm going to tack it up and just kind of make a couple final adjustments. If I can start tacking it and banging it around with a hammer, then I can make sure it's very true. But, you know, who knows if the chassis is that straight. I know that it's been banged up. It's been hitting the front end. I've straightened some things out here. So I'm pretty happy with where it's at. I think it's time to tack it up and then get a final measurement and see where it sits. I remember why the door isn't open. Because I can't see. It auto darkens the mask. It's so bright outside. So the frame rail is at 88.2, and this is at 88, which makes that 90 degrees to the chassis. That's good. 10.0, 9.6. I'd say that's pretty darn close. Now let's check this direction. 89.2, 89.4. I say we're bang on. That's pretty good. I think we can send it. I think we could weld it up and be done with this section. So everything's welded up and it is still bang on. So I'm really happy with the way it turned out. I have a couple little welds to get inside here, but I can't see anything. As you can see right now, the sun is glaring through the garage and it's coming in through the back of the hood, so it's very hard for me to see these detailed areas. So I'm gonna get back at that tomorrow and I'll show you everything that is done. I'm pretty happy with the way everything's turned out. So just a couple little finishing touches and that's it. That's how you build a tube front. So happy to check that off the list.